the hills above a town called Kurseong, there is a stretch of road nobody walks after 4 in the afternoon, not after dark, 4 o'clock, while the sun is still out. Ask why, and almost everyone gives you the same answer. They say a boy walks that road too, and he has no head. Kurseong sits in the eastern Himalayan foothills of West Bengal, a few hours below Darjeeling by road. The British took the ridge in 1835, drawn by the cool air and the tea gardens they planted across every slope they could reach. A narrow mountain railway followed a few decades later, climbing straight to the middle of town, still running today. Above the town, on a ridge called Dow Hill, they built something else. 2 Victorian boarding schools, tucked into forests so dense with fog that visibility some mornings drops to a few feet. One school for girls. The other, Victoria Boys School, founded in 1879. Both schools are still open. Locals will tell you, without hesitation, that it is the most haunted place in India. Between the school grounds and the forest office sits a short stretch of road. People here don't use its real name. They call it Death Road. Woodcutters who have worked this forest for decades describe the same figure, independently, without ever comparing notes. A boy, walking alone at the tree line, his head missing entirely. He doesn't run. He doesn't turn toward them. He just walks toward the trees, and then he isn't there anymore. Ask 10 people in Kurseong who he was, and you will get 10 different answers. Some say he was a student, murdered somewhere on the school grounds, and nobody ever found out by whom. Others say he died in the forest itself, long before either school was built, and the building simply went up too close to whatever happened to him. A few won't even guess. They just say the road has always been like this. For as long as their own parents could remember it, the stories don't stay on the road, they follow you into the buildings. Inside Victoria Boys School, the winter break runs nearly 4 months. Snow, cold, and altitude close the campus completely. No students, no staff. Empty dormitories, empty corridors, locked from the inside. And yet caretakers who have stayed behind over the years report the same thing. The unmistakable sound of boys running through those empty halls. Footsteps, doors opening and closing on their own. A building that should be completely silent, behaving like it is still full. Deeper in the forest, hikers describe a woman in gray, seen once and then never again, always too far away to make out her face. Others describe a single point of red light, low to the ground, watching from between the trees. Gone the moment a torch turns toward it. None of this stayed local for long. Dow Hill now draws paranormal investigators from across the country, some running proper equipment. Audio recorders left overnight have picked up whispering, with no obvious source. Thermal readings have logged sudden cold spots in rooms with no draft to explain them. One of India's own paranormal research groups lists Dow Hill as a priority site for serious field study, not a tourist gimmick. By some counts, it is now the second most searched haunted location in the entire country, behind only Rajasthan's Bhangarh fort. Hundreds of thousands of people, every year, typing the same question into a search bar. What actually happened up there? Nobody with the authority to investigate anything has ever formally done so. No police case, no coroner's report, no official record of a death on that ridge at all. It exists the way most of India's oral folklore exists. Repeated, consistent in its broad shape, story after story, decade after decade, and completely undocumented. Here is where it gets genuinely strange. The schools push back, hard, against all of it. Staff at Victoria Boys School have publicly asked journalists and visitors to stop spreading what they call negative and untrue stories about a functioning institution that has educated students for nearly a century and a half. As far as the school's own records are concerned, no student has ever died on those grounds under mysterious circumstances. No case, no name, no date, nothing to investigate, because nothing, officially, ever happened. So now there are 2 accounts. Both absolute, both coming from people who have every reason to know the truth. Generations of locals, insisting the road and the school are haunted by something specific enough to describe the same way, decade after decade, without ever meeting each other. and the institution itself, insisting there is nothing here to explain because, as far as its own history is concerned, the story simply isn't real. Nobody has ever reconciled those two versions. Nobody may ever be able to. Dow Hill is not remote. It is not some abandoned ruin nobody visits anymore. Children are enrolled there this year. Teachers report to work there this week. The morning toy train still climbs the ridge below it, past tea gardens the British planted 2 centuries ago, carrying tourists who have no idea what sits in the fog above them. Buses still climb that same road every morning, past the same stretch. Nobody walks after 4, and every winter, when the last student leaves and the campus empties out for 4 months, someone still has to stay behind to look after the buildings. They still hear the running in the corridors. Whatever is happening on that hill has now outlasted its colonial founders, generations of students, and every official denial anyone has ever issued. Nobody has ever named the boy. Nobody has ever found a body. And every year, when 4 o'clock comes around, the road still empties out anyway.